Howdy, y'all, and welcome back. Time for another Sapper Stories. In honor of Veterans Day, I thought this would be a fun idea. And for those of you who aren't familiar with these are not stories of combat or combat engineer activities. If that's what you have come here looking for, you can probably just stop watching now. All right, so this one we will call No Man Left Behind. And it takes place on my 20th birthday, which was 1994. Myself and three buddies rented a car to drive ourselves down to Munich for the real deal, great big Oktoberfest. It's about a 2-hour drive, so we figured it would be a good idea to buy 2 cases of beer, throw them in a cooler, and hit the road. So we're pre-gaming on our way to Oktoberfest. And that ended up looking something like this. You know it's going to be a long day and night when you pass out on the way to the fest. I have no idea how many beers I drank before that photo was taken, but I got a little nappy nap in. It probably saved my life. So when we get to Munich, my roommate had been the year before to Oktoberfest, and he knew that parking was a disaster. So he was like, hey, you know what? Let's park kind of a ways away, and we'll take a subway in to the fest grounds. So we're like, all right, bet. So we found, I don't know, we had a map with subways on it. We found a place to park that looked like the car would be safe, for the day and into the night. And kind of locked in the cross streets and walked a block or two to the subway station, got on the subway, took us right to the fest grounds, and we began festing. And we bumped into another one of our battle buddies and his girlfriend, and we're having a good old time. Looked something like this. So we're mingling and we're drinking and a little bit of eating and keeping up foreign relations with our German hosts. And I'm pretty sure that they put some kind of hallucinogen in the fest beer because shit started getting weird. Now, I was a certified, trained, professional alcoholic at this point in my life. And, I felt like I was well conditioned and could handle myself. Y'all, Oktoberfest is weird. So we're getting pretty rowdy. We're getting pretty loose. And of course, you're taking in lots of beer, so you gotta pee. And the lines for the actual restrooms were insanity, just completely nuts. But we noticed that a lot of the Germans would just go out to the trees and pee out there. So that's what we were doing. Go out, hang a squirt, handle your business. It's Germany. They're pretty, open and easy about stuff like that. And so we're drinking and we're peeing and we're drinking and and eventually, and funny enough, I have a photograph of the last time that anybody saw me for the rest of the night, right here. All right, so I look around, everybody's gone. I'm like, well, let me go back to the table where we just were. And I go to the table and they're gone. They have popped smoke and broken contact. They're gone. And I have no idea where. There was no mention of where we were going to go next or anything. They're just gone. So I do the correct thing and I hunker down. I'm like, they'll come back and scoop me up, They'll realize, oh, wait, Hancock isn't here, and they'll come back around and get me. So I wait, and I drink, and I wait, and I drink. And then I'm like this weird guy at Oktoberfest by himself. So I start kind of like trying to chit chat with Germans, and I speak very shitty, like tiny amount of German. Most Germans speak some English-ish, kind of. I'm getting damaged at this point, and they keep not coming to get me. So I very cautiously venture out, like, and look around. But I mean, if you've ever been to Oktoberfest in Munich, it's massive. I mean, it's like Disneyland for alcoholics. It's ginormous, and so I'm like the only smart thing to do is stay put. They'll get me. No man left behind. So I'm running out of money, and it's getting weird, and I'm like scooping up beers that people have left, like half full beers that people have left on the table. And at one point I traded my baseball hat to a German dude for his full beer. I mean, it's getting ugly. So it's getting dark. And I'm like, maybe I just got to get back to the car. Somehow, through the absolute like blackout drunkenness, I can remember the cross streets. So I find my way to the like opening of the fest grounds. Like there's a big main entrance that we had come in, and I see a bus. I'm like, sweet. So I get on the bus. Remember the part I mentioned about taking the subway to get there? So I get on the bus, and I promptly pass out. Just out. And I don't know how long that bus drove around, but at some point, the bus pulls over, and the driver is shaking me. Rouse! Rouse! So I get off the bus. Somewhere in Munich. And I don't know Munich. So I look around and I look for like the busiest street, like bright lights, and I aim for that. And I find a fairly busy street, and I wave down a cab. The cabbie pulls me over, and I give him the cross streets. And I pass out again. And I wake up, and I look at the, and it's like a 60 mark fare, and I have no money. So I do the old, that's about $45. So I do the old, oh yeah, hold on, let me get my wallet, and grab the door, and I run. And that was like a 5-minute miler at the time. So I just ran, and he gave chase in the car for like a second and then gave up. I hid in some bushes, waited long enough to, I was pretty sure he had given up on me. And I walked back down to the cross streets where we had parked. And of course, the car is gone. So, it is dark, and it is cold, and I don't have a coat. I have a sweater. And it's a Sunday night. So I'm down to change, pfennigs, in my pocket, and there's a payphone. Again, this is pre-cell phones. So I use some of the last of my change in the cell phone to call, not headquarters, but we had a phone, like a community phone, in our hallway in the barracks on the first floor. And I call that. I had the number like written down in my wallet. I call that. And someone answers. And I'm like, hey, get a hold of... So I'm trying to get a hold of my boys to like, hey, assholes, come back and get me. And eventually they get a hold of one of them. Bro, we turned the rental car in already. So, oh shit. I have to be at formation in like hours. So they're like, we'll find somebody to come get you. So I'm like, all right, well, it's cold. I have no money. I'm starving. I look around, I put my Arctic extreme cold weather training skills to use. And I find a dumpster there in the gas station parking lot. So I'm like, let's see what's in the dumpster. And sure enough, there was a great big, just beautiful, clean sheet of cardboard. And I'm like, all right, sweet. So I take out the cardboard and I cocoon myself in it and slide under a van and knock out. And I wake up to the tweeting of birds and daylight and cold, very, very cold. And Jesus Christ. And it's like I'm supposed to be standing in formation like now-ish. So one last Hail Mary, like the last of my change. I throw it in the phone. I call the barracks. I'm like, what the hell, y'all? And eventually, like, they get my buddy on the phone, and he's like, Sergeant Eels is on his way. We gave him the location. And this wonderful E5 who didn't really drink very much, he was kind of a square. Sergeant Eels, if there's some weird chance you're watching this, thank you so much. And anyway, so I hunker down it was like another 90 minutes or so. He shows up. It was like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Get in the car. I smell atrocious. I'm absolutely mortified of him, just so embarrassed. And he was a sweetheart about it, didn't give me any shit. He actually blamed them for leaving me, like that, but it was very, very embarrassing and a little awkward to explain to my chain of command when I showed up at like noon on Monday. And miraculously, I got in no trouble for this at all, like at all. But anyway, there is really no moral to this story whatsoever. It's just a fun night that I had in my youth. Kind of amazing that I didn't spend I spent a couple of nights in jail, but never did any like hard time or like ended up permanently in the hospital during my time in service. So anyway, fun Sapper stories. I hope I've entertained you for a few minutes. Until next time, be easy, y'all.